Welcome to the 1204. In 2005, Azel Rodney was shot and killed by police officers in North London. Azel Rodney was a criminal. Let's have it right. Azel Rodney was in possession of a firearm when he was shot and killed by the police. The police believed Azel Rodney was on the way to rob a Colombian drug dealer. He was under police surveillance, and for whatever reason, the police decided to stop Azel Rodney at that particular moment. Now, when they shot Azel Rodney, just before they shot him, the police officer shot him. The police car, which was not a police vehicle, it was a unmarked car, and they pulled up beside the car Azel Rodney was in. Azel Rodney was sitting in the back seat. The police pulled up beside him. Azel Rodney leant forward. Now, you got to remember, the police cannot see his hands, especially if the police is in a similar sized vehicle right beside him. So they can't see his hand. All they can see him is leaning forward. Now, these officers have less than seconds to make a decision that could have serious consequences for all involved. Officer couldn't see his hand. He's leaned over. They believe there's a firearm in the car. So the officers then maybe have to assume the worst, have to assume that he's going for a firearm. Now, he more than likely will not use the firearm. But that's easy for me to say, sitting over here. But in the officer's mind, he can't take that risk because he's the one in the firing line. These officers have families as well. They have people that care about them. He can't take any risk. The officer has his gun pointed at this guy. Think about this right now. The officer has a gun pointed at Azel Rodney. Azel Rodney leans forward to pick something up. The officers have to assume he's going for a gun. Now, he more than likely would have threw that gun away. These guys are not shooting at no armed police officers, in my opinion. However, I'm not the one in the firing line. So I can't expect these guys to assume that. They have to assume the worst. The officer then pulls the trigger, firing 8 shots. I believe 6 of those shots hit Azel Rodney. Witnesses who witnessed this, they said they assumed it was a gangland execution. Because when you're first looking at that without seeing the context, it just looks like a drive-by shooting with gangsters. The shooting was so reckless that a member of the public was almost hit by a stray bullet. Because this is not the movies. When you shoot something, the bullet just don't lodge into that thing. Pardon me. Well, pardon me. Yeah, my allergies are kicking in again. Oh, God. I'm allergic to these plants. But anyway, so anyway, that's happened now. Hazel Rodney is dead. And then I listened to a statement his mum made. And his mum said this. His mum's name is Susan Alexander, I believe. She said, I don't condone my son carrying a gun. I don't even condone whatever he was up to that day. However, he has the right to be apprehended. I can accept that. And if you people are objective as well, then I think you would have to accept that too. Sounds like a fair statement. Because any mother would prefer to visit their child in a jail than to visit a gravestone. It's a no-brainer. But I've watched some of these videos and I've read the comments. And by the way, I'm talking about Chris Kaba. And the comments and the videos are basically people who are kind of like, they seem to be surprised that Chris Kaba has people fighting his corner. Especially after what's come to light about Chris Kaba. Because Chris Kaba was a violent, dangerous criminal. Let's have it right. Is that some of you people expect his people, his loved ones, to accept he was a violent, dangerous criminal. Therefore, why are you fighting his corner? I mean, good riddance to bad rubbish. But it doesn't work like that. Because you ride for your loved ones. You fight for your loved ones, right or wrong. There are people out there who are pedophiles, who have people that care about them. People who are rapists, murderers, and they still have people who visit them in prison, who put money in their books, who would fight for them tooth or nail if something was to happen to them. That's understandable. I definitely understand it. Now we look at Chris Kaba. Listen, I will never know how it feels to have a child, to bury a child, to have a child murdered. Especially because I can understand if a child, died of an illness or whatever, that's one thing. But to have somebody take the life of your child, especially from a woman's point of view, carrying that child 9 months in your stomach, risking your life to put a child on this earth, only for somebody to take that child away from you. I can only imagine how that feels. The grief, the anger, all sorts of emotions must be going through that woman's mind. So I can definitely understand where these types of parents are coming from when they are fighting tooth and nail for their criminal sons. But you look at Chris Kaba. Yes, he was unarmed at the time. He had no gun on him at the time. But when you look at the events that took place a day before he was shot and killed, where he was chasing somebody through the streets of London, firing shots at that person. And let's have it right, Chris Kaba was not trying to scare that person. He was not even trying to seriously injure that person. He was trying to take that person's life. This was somebody who had no problem taking the life of another human being, doing to another human being, doing to a mother what was done to his mother. Because had Chris Kaba been successful, that would have been another black woman wearing a wearing a black dress in a church, crying over her, crying over a grave of her dead son. But in a twist of fate, that person survived. And that person's mother can hold her tears back for another day. Whilst Chris Kaba's mother is the one with the tears, standing over her dead son's grave. So here you have somebody who has no problem taking the life of another human being, who has no problem discharging a firearm. And remember, the police are human beings. They've got people that care about them as well. They don't want to end up 6 feet under with people crying over their grave. So when they approach this Chris Kaba to stop him, Chris Kaba does not follow police instructions. Now, maybe, just maybe. Now, I'll get to that point in a second. He doesn't follow the instructions asked of him. He panics like some of these criminals do whenever they're cornered. He put his foot on a pedal. He's trying to ram police cars. Now, mind you, the police have information that this guy was in possession of a firearm the night before. They also have information that he attempted to murder somebody. So what they do know is this guy who has access to a firearm and is not afraid to use the firearm. And this same individual is trying to ram the police car. He's not stopping. So they have no choice but to stop him because he refused to stop. End up shooting him dead. And because they don't find a firearm in the car, the police, what would have been a regular day at the office, now they have to explain themselves to the public. Why was this black man shot dead? And there's no firearm in sight. Context, please. Give us the context. I can definitely understand Chris Kaba's loved ones, close loved ones, fighting his corner on this one. But Chris Kaba's family are going to have a hard time getting people to sign up to this campaign. Because of that video, I believe the police people played a blinder by showing that video of Chris Kaba chasing somebody, chasing a unarmed, I'm assuming, black man through the streets of through the streets of London, discharging a firearm in the direction of that black man. Because they released that footage, Chris Kaba's family is going to have a hard time getting people to sign up to this campaign. And I'll be real with you, watching that video of Chris Kaba chasing that man through the streets, shooting at him, made me feel very uneasy. brought back memories of when I was chased with a gun and people shooting after me. It is one, in fact, it's probably, I can't imagine anything more terrifying. And I know people who have lost their life that exact way. I remember in 2000, now this guy was a lot older than me. He was about, I was 12. So this guy was like 12 years older than me. Now this was a very dangerous person, an extremely violent man, big, black and scary, fearless, ruthless. And when I heard about how he died, I remember thinking to myself, because he was chased through an estate and he was shot 6 times in the back. And I remember thinking to myself, I remember having a random thought of he must have been very scared. Because to see a man that size who was fearless when it came to hand combat, and to hear about him running, his last moments on this earth, he was running. The same thing with the notorious South London gangster who everyone talks about. Now, I'm not going to say his name, but I'm going to refer to him as SP. I think we know who I'm on about. His last moments. Now, everyone knew his reputation. This was a bad dude. This guy was a formidable street fighter. Had the heart of a lion. But his last moments, he was sprinting before he was shot and killed. Sprinting away in the opposite direction. Before he was shot in the back. The bullet piercing his heart. I can only imagine what that person was thinking. In fact, I believe I know what he was thinking when Chris Kaba was chasing him. He would have been petrified. And the wickedest thing is this. Had Chris Kaba had been successful, the people who were campaigning for Chris Kaba, they would not even have put up one message saying who killed so and so. They would not even have campaigned for who would have gunned down that young black man in the streets. They would have been like, well, he chose that lifestyle. If you live by it, you may die by it. And if you die by it, people are going to have a hard time about your people crying about it. Peace.